Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the discussion today is about a tax, and that is the reality. We're talking about a tax, and we're talking about increasing the tax to people who travel into this country, and we're also speaking about taxing tourism. Madam Speaker, I want to just begin by quoting for you from the IMF concluding statement of 2017, the Article 4. And it said, Madam Speaker, on point 2, the short-term outlook is mildly positive, but presents some risk. Moderate growth is expected in 2017, primarily on account of continued strong performance in construction and agriculture. The overall outlook appears uncertain as positive developments in tourism, the expected increase in the number of hotel rooms, and the opening of new direct flights from the U.S. may be stifled by the impact of the new airport tax. Now, that wasn't said by me, it was said by the International Monetary Fund. So, Madam Speaker, we're talking about a tax. And it's very interesting today, Madam Speaker, and they say God works in mysterious ways, that there are serious things happening in the matter of taxes throughout the world. The EU, Madam Speaker, has just blacklisted St. Lucia as a tax haven. And that happened today, this morning. St. Lucia has been blacklisted as a tax haven. And the finance minister for France, Mr. Lamer, he made the point that countries that are blacklisted may lose access to EU funds. So we sit here in our chairs of glory, where we can attack people, where we can victimize people, where we can laugh at people, not understanding that there's a reality that exists in the real world, and we cannot escape that reality. So in spite of what we say here, when we do not use our taxes, our tax policy, in an effective way, we get blacklisted. And when we get blacklisted, as the French Minister of Finance said, we can lose access to EU funds. I wasn't the one who said it. If you go into the New York Times, and we laugh at these things because we're so strong. We run these little countries, so we're strong, we're powerful. It was said in the EU, St. Lucia is blacklisted. We have to do that blacklisting, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. But honestly, we talk about taxes. I want to ask the government, what tax have they reduced? What tax? The only tax this government has reduced is VAT. They've increased the tax on petrol. They've increased the tax, the departure tax. Even taxes in the courts have increased. What taxes has this government reduced to be speaking about taxes? The only tax this government has released is this government has put St. Lucia at risk in that they are boasting about taxes that impact on firms opening their head offices in St. Lucia. And what happens, Madam Speaker, is that there's got to be equal, it is something called ring fencing in the tax jargon. You cannot ask people to give you incentives, give you concessions, give you money, and then you are creating a tax haven for them in your country. Now, these are things we have to sit and we have to discuss, not if arrogance and if scorn and if contempt. We have to discuss it, Madam Speaker, because today, in spite of what we say in this honorable house, in spite of the amount of jobs we can give in this honorable house, fact is that St. Lucia has been blacklisted by the EU, and it's a fact that we have to deal with, or else we will suffer the consequences. So, Madam Speaker, I want to make the first point. What we are doing is we are imposing a tax. And secondly, St. Lucia has not taken any measures to reduce any taxation, as we say all the time. Only what we did, we reduced VAT by 2.5%. We've put a petrol tax of $150, and we've also increased travel tax, Madam Speaker. That is a fact. The merits and demerits, I don't want to go into it now, but it's a fact. So when we speak about taxes, we must be careful what we say. Madam Speaker, if you have members on the other side, you will think that the PPP arrangements are arrangements made in hell. Jamaica, a favorite country, a country where we boast about, we want to follow. The Sangster International Airport in Jamaica is built with a PPP award, a 30 years concession for the Sangster International Airport, and that agreement was entered in 2003. Sangster International is built on a PPP, and Sangster International Airport got the award, Madam Speaker, of being one of the best airports in the world. So we sit here and we criticize the PPP as if it's a set of mad fellas and we're crazy. And I want to deal with some of the things the Minister of Agriculture said in a while. Because you see, Madam Speaker, the reality, we can talk, we can victimize, we can laugh at, but there are certain things, certain realities that hit you in government which you have to deal with. And the blacklisting is one, and there are more to come. So, Madam Speaker, the airport discussion began from as early as 2007 when the government changed. 2007. When in our manifesto at the time, we said that we were in favor of doing some work of improving the airport. But this government began negotiations on the airport from 2007. And they left government in 2011, and they hadn't built no airport as yet. They hadn't built the airport. So the point I'm making is you come and you tell us that we started in 2012, and we didn't finish in 2016, but you started in 2007, and you did not finish in 2011. Let's find out why. You had the airport development tax. You said you'd have had $50 million in the accounts. Oh, you'd have had endless money. And I want to go back to the Minister of Agriculture. I've been filming a while. Because, you know, Madam Speaker, when we try to score cheap political points, we must know people are listening to us. If you have a mortgage for a house, if you go to the bank and you borrow to build a house, let's suppose you borrow $200,000. For a poor person like me, that's what I borrow. I live in where I was living. If you are supposing you borrow $200,000 a month, and you pay back $2,000 a month, right? In 1 year, you pay $24,000. In 20 years, you pay $480,000. But you only borrowed $200,000. So your logic of the interest is yes, more than that. On your but you haven't got a mortgage, boss. You don't have a mortgage. Interest compounds. Yes. You see, that's a problem. You're not living in the world of reality. You see, you're not paying mortgage. Probably that's why. If you had a mortgage, you would know. That's the problem. You don't have a mortgage. If you had a mortgage, you understand that. And there are bankers inside there. The bankers will tell you. The banks, your mortgage will increase. More than that. More than that. And that's the difference. You understand? It's more than that. So you see, so when you talk about collecting money, the $10 million a year, and you have that amount of money in, you see, you must rethink it. I come into you just now. So, Madam Speaker, that airport development tax, they imposed it. And they said they had anything they want to say, because they're happy to see figures. Anything they want. Say whatever you had. I complain about it. Why didn't you build the airport? Why didn't you begin the airport? And that is what the member for Castries South was saying. There were factors that caused you not to be able to build the airport. And that is the point, which you're coming back later. You had your lockbox, you had your loan, you had everything. You had everything. Things were set. You were a hard-working government. You could have gone your way. Why didn't you start the airport? You did not study airport because there were factors which you don't want us to talk about. But you have to come to the House when you're going to borrow the money for contingent liability, and we'll discuss it. Why didn't you not begin construction of the airport when you had everything in place? You had the logbox, you had the airport development tax, why didn't you build it? I'm coming to you just now. You're in a hurry, eh? Why are you so aggressive, man? Relax yourself, relax. So, Madam Speaker, you had everything in place, but you didn't start the airport. There must be a reason. We'll come back to that later. So, Madam Speaker, we hear about the other way, as if the PPP is such a mess. Madam Speaker, 6 airports in Brazil built by PPP. India, the Delhi airport and the Mumbai airport built by PPP. In Costa Rica, airports are built by PPP. In Bahamas, airports are built by PPP. The IMF has recommended to Barbados that they should try to get a PPP arrangement for the airports, for the simple reason that airports need to be managed professionally, and they need to be managed in a certain way that will ensure that they are not a drain on the resources of the country. So the way you do it, Madam Speaker, is that you get the expertise to put their own money into the airport. So your treasury is not burdened with that debt. So you put the private sector, they invest the money, they get their returns, and your airport comes back to you. What in that model is such a disgrace that you guys are crazy, you all didn't do it? In Singapore, a country that they always talk about, airports in Singapore on the PPP arrangements. The PPP arrangement is a new way where governments ease themselves out of the financial burden and put themselves in arrangement with the private sector so they can reduce their debt. That's what it's all about. It's not a mystery. It's not because we're wicked. It's not because we don't want to do it. We do not do it because, first of all, I want to make it abundantly clear that there was no agreement to build any airport in St. Lucia. When we came with the government, there was no agreement to build any airport in St. Lucia because A&M, who had to put in $23 million, A&M failed the due diligence and the douche bank refused to lend us the money. And that is a fact. And you can jump high, you can jump low. That is a fact that you have to live with. So, Madam Speaker, A&M failed the due diligence because the arrangement that they had before was A&M would have to invest $23 million to put as their part of the bargain, and the douche bank will lend them the remainder. When the due diligence was done on A&M, the douche bank said, we're not lending the money again. A&M failed the due diligence and the deal fell through. So there was no arrangement. There was no agreement to build any airport in St. Lucia when it came to power. No agreement. And as we say, because this morning I heard, Madam Speaker, that Grindberg was never discussed in his honorable house. Never discussed. I sat right there. I heard a member for Central Castries. At the time, he spoke for about 2 hours on Grindberg. And at that time, Grindberg was made a document of the House. The agreement was made a document of the House, and I have the agreement here with me today. The agreement nobody can find. That's the agreement there. I found the agreement in the House. Agreement with the government and RSM production, but that's for another show. But we were told that was a complete secret. Nobody knew about it. The member for Central Castries, he spoke volumes and reams about Grindberg in his honorable house. But we say nobody knew about it. Let's move. Madam Speaker, PPP. And the member for Castries North said they chose to do it their way. No problem, you're in government, you win elections, you're in control. Go ahead, do it your way. Question, Madam Speaker. Let us look at some of the realities of the PPP and some of the falsities and the falsehoods that we are seeing on this side, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when discussions began on the development of the airport, because the deal between A&M and the douche bank had fallen through, the government of the then St. Lucia Labour Party began discussions with the World Bank with a view to building, improving the airport terminal. Madam Speaker, there is an institution in the Canadian government called Global Affairs Canada. That institution provided $1.8 million as a grant to SLASPA. And that grant was to cover the transactions costs on behalf of the government of St. Lucia for a team of specialized consultants to implement the project. Not no fella around the place, specialized consultants, Madam Speaker. And these consultants were serious global consultants. They were the ones. And the Canadian government gave a grant, not a loan. What St. Lucia had to pay was only $250 to put that whole deal together, so that the IMF, $250,000, US dollars, so they can put that whole deal together so we can get the construction, the concessionary agreement for the airport, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, after discussions, and you must understand, that was not a secret, you know. These discussions were held in public. The taxi people were contacted, the Chamber of Commerce was contacted, all the stakeholders, the leader of the leader of the United Workers' Party, he had the privilege of having a discussion with the people who were putting the transaction together. So it's not new to him. He was there at that time. He was leader of the United Workers' Party. He had discussions with the IFC on the implementation of the PPP. So it wasn't something that happened in secret. It wasn't something that we put under the table. All the stakeholders, there was a communication strategy that was put in place to discuss the PPP arrangements for the government of St. Lucia through SLASPA. That wasn't any secret. So here's what the concessionary agreement was, Madam Speaker. And it's important that we go there, because, you know, I wouldn't have mind if the government came and said, and I come back to the development bank situation. I was in opposition, the development bank. I said to them, listen to me, you're in government, you want to go to the development bank, do your development bank. These are my concerns. But I didn't castigate them and call them this and this. I didn't do it because it is their choice. So the government said, listen, that's my choice. In spite of all the problems with A&M, etc., I still want to go this way. That's your business. But do not come here and pretend as if the PPP arrangement is something that came from the sky, and because we're so wicked and we're so inefficient and we didn't get it done, that is why we don't have an airport. That is not true. And let me tell you some further facts. The PPP arrangement, Madam Speaker, would have given the government some fiscal space. Because what has happened is that with their arrangement, some fiscal space, with their arrangement, you would have put a debt on the government of St. Lucia and also a contingent liability. So you have a debt in real terms and you have a contingent liability, Madam Speaker. And we thought at this time it was not good economic policy, because of the limited fiscal space, to impose that kind of debt burden on the people of St. Lucia. So here is what the agreement is all about. Here's what the agreement is all about, Madam Speaker. It was a 40-year concession agreement under which SLASPA and the government of St. Lucia would retain ownership and regulatory oversight over the Hibanoro International Airport through a concession fee, revenue, and corporate income taxes paid by the private investor. So the private investor would not get our airport for free. He would pay a concession fee, revenue sharing, and corporate income taxes. And over the private investor in the arrangement that we have would not have got the airport free for 30 years. For 30 years, he would have paid a concession fee and it of revenue and corporate income taxes. And it was calculated that over the life of the agreement for 40 years, an estimated $1 billion of income would have been incurred to SLASPA, and $580 million worth of income taxes. That is the agreement that was on the table. So it is not fair to say, it is not, the agreement, you have it, you know it. So it's not fair to say that, it is not fair. It is not fair to say, it is not fair to say, when I have serious discussions, I deal here. I'm talking serious business. So it's not fair to say, and Madam Speaker, it is not fair to say, it is not fair to say, it is not fair to say that PPP agreement would have gone, it's just something, haywire, that St. Lucia will get nothing. That's not true. St. Lucia would have got $1 billion of revenue and $580 million of income taxes from that agreement. Further, for the entire life of the concession, the private investor, Madam Speaker, will be responsible for the entire airport business and will design, construct, and finance any improvements necessary for all the facilities, including a new terminal building, a runway, taxiways, apron expansion, and improved power station, as well as operate and maintain all these facilities according to detailed performance criteria and international civil aviation standards. Also, Madam Speaker, this concessionaire had arranged a 30-year plan for the development of the airport. So in the 30 years, there have been marginal improvements in the airport without the St. Lucia government having to pay 1 cent or incurring one inch of liability. Now, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, when you have PPP arrangements, Madam Speaker, you see, Madam Speaker, we believe, and I don't want to be sidetracked. We believe that we can talk glibly about facts when we know it is right. Like saying and say Granberg was never discussed in the House when it was discussed for 2 hours. And when we believe we can say these things and people will believe us because of the political affiliation. But the reality is, these things can be proven. You understand? Further, Madam Speaker, they talk about a time frame. Now, the only reason why that these things take time is because you are dealing with large projects, you're dealing with a lot of money, and you do not want to have to make all these phone calls. And you're dealing with a tendering process that is very transparent and open. So you find nobody have to call the tenderer. So you will not, days before it goes to the tenders board, to call the tenderer and say, check that for me. That doesn't happen in these processes because the private sector body that is involved wants complete transparency because they are the ones who are spending the money. And that's the point I want to make. Since the private sector investor is spending the money, he's ensuring that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed because it's his money. You understand? But in that model, you have a free reign, direct award here, fresh start here, everything you want. You have a free reign. You can do anything. It's a free reign. You run things. You're in control. But in that other model, a model that the Jamaican government followed, a model that the government in Singapore followed, a model that the government in the Bahamas followed. The private sector investor has his money, so he protects his money. So we politicians, we stay away from that. Only what we have is oversight to ensure that the regulatory functions of the airport are properly done. That's all we have, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, in that process, for the 40-year life of the concession, the investment program is estimated there will be 118 million US dollars in new capital investments, 90 million in maintenance, giving a total of $208 million. Under the concession contract, the private investor is required to complete the mandatory construction works totaling US 80 million within 40 months of the start of the concession. For the benefit of the government of St. Lucia, the concession contract requires the private investor to post a completion bond to compensate the government of St. Lucia for any delays or violations of performance requirements. These were some of the safeguards that were built into that concessionary agreement. So you can't have no cost overruns, you can't have no delays, you can't have any, because it's the private sector person who is investing the money. But at the same time, your airport still belongs to you, and you make $1 billion in fees and $580 million in taxes. And if you had, and you know, Madam Speaker, because we know everything about finance, because we know so much, we are so powerful. We laugh at these things. But you have to go and check for yourself and look at the agreement with the government of Jamaica. The Jamaica government that you follow, look at the Sangster agreements. You'll see what's there. You understand? That is called a PPP, public-private partnership. And the reason for that is because you, the country, does not have the burden of the tax, Madam Speaker. Further, Madam Speaker, the proposed PPP structure does not require the government of St. Lucia to raise any financing for the development of the airports. As a result, the project has no negative impact on the government of St. Lucia's debt position. Now, listen to the argument. The argument is, you put an airport development tax, and very simple, in the life of simpletons, the airport development tax will be back for the airport. That is the life of simpletons. The airport development tax will pay back for the airport. If life was so simple, if things were done so simple, a lot more things would happen. It's not as simple. It's not that simple, Madam Speaker. And that is why the IMF and the World Bank have recommended for major infrastructural projects of that nature, you go to PPP arrangements. First of all, to remove any cloud of doubt. So all the issues that we do not want to speak about would not arise. All the issues that we are afraid to speak about will never arise. Will never arise. There will not be any documents. There won't be any inquiry. There won't be any letters we can't find. It will never be of nature. Because the burden would have not been on the government, so you'd have protected the government, and the country would have been protected because the country would have had less debt, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, we move on. Here is the financial arrangement that they want to make you believe everything would go to the concession. Everything. St. Lucia will get nothing. St. Lucia get nothing. Here is the agreement, man. Here is the concession agreement that was in the concession agreement. Apart from the $1 billion and fee revenue of $1 billion and corporate income taxes of $580 million undiscounted over the life of the concession, the concessioner will collect and remit monthly to SLASPA all passenger security charges and navigation and communication charges. The concessionary will collect and remit monthly to SLASPA all passenger security charges and navigation and communication charges. These two charges are for the direct use and benefit of SLASPA and the government of St. Lucia. The concessionaire will also collect, receive, and retain all the remaining fees and charges, excluding the 2 charges mentioned above during the concessionary period. The amount of these charges is set in line with the regulatory mechanism in the concession agreement and is reviewed and approved by SLASPA. The concessionaire will also collect and return the non-aeronautical revenues generated from commercial activities at the airports. So, Madam Speaker, what that means, there will be a revenue sharing between the private sector and the government. And in that deal, because the private sector, because they've set up a performance bond, they would ensure that it doesn't fail because they would bring their expertise to the development of the airport in St. Lucia. And we would benefit by getting $1 billion and $580 million of income tax, Madam Speaker. The transaction process, Madam Speaker, included a comprehensive due diligence evaluation of St. Lucia's aviation sector, including both the HIA and George F.L. Charles airports, with the objective of developing an appropriate transaction structure and the market and tendering of the transactions with the investors, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at the time when this government came into power, the bidding process was almost complete. SLASPA had finalized negotiations with 3 pre-qualified investors for successive markups to the draft concessionary agreement, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, the transaction structure, 3 major airport developers had shown interest in Humanoid International Airport. 3 major airport developers, Madam Speaker, because they had seen the document, they had seen what we were offering, they had looked at a complete study of St. Lucia's tourism industry, of the use of the airport, of how many passengers will come. They've done a thorough analysis. And 3, the tender process, Madam Speaker, was launched on July the 7th, 2015. For those of them that say we did nothing, July the 7th, 2015, the tendering process was launched. And 3 of the world's biggest airport developers had shown interest in Humanoid International Airport. These airport developers were Vinci, a consortium of Vinci airports. With Vinci airports, they operate 24 airport facilities in Portugal, Cambodia, and France. On April the 1st, 2016, Vinci acquired 2 other airports in Japan, making the company one of the world's top 5 airport operators. That company showed interest in St. Lucia. So, the government was so bad. We are doing so many things. That company showed interest in St. Lucia. So, these people are stupid. Sedicor is a Hungarian company with principal businesses is to make investments in airports and airport-related businesses globally. Sedicor controls airports in Argentina and operates more than 30 airports in Argentina, Ecuador, Peru, and Italy. That company showed interest in St. Lucia. Then there is Ashur Highstar, is a New York Stock Exchange company trading that exchange, a New York Stock Exchange company, Madam Speaker, that manages the airport in Mexico. They also showed interest in St. Lucia. These 3 companies showed interest in St. Lucia, Madam Speaker. And after all the due diligence, after all the discussions, after the tendering process, 1 of them dropped out. So in the end, Vinci and Sedicor were the 2 companies that were interested in the concessionary arrangement with the United Airport. These 2 companies, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, they tell you about the timetable. Now, all that's happening, there are no issues. You have no discussion about who asks who questions. There's no question on don't say that. There's no question on you can't find things in the Attorney General's office. Nothing of that nature. There is no question on who is investigating who for what. There is no question. No question. These things are happening. They're happening in a professional manner because world global firms are on the verge of coming into an arrangement with the government of St. Lucia. Global firms, not firms like A&M that failed due diligence with the douche bank. No, not these firms. Global firms, global airport development firms are the ones who showed interest in St. Lucia, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, here is the time frame. And you know, Madam Speaker, I take time to go through these details because I know in the responses, dirt is what's going to be thrown. There is not going to be any meaningful, there is not going to be any meaningful discussion on what I've said. Just dirt. It's just dirt. There is not going to be, now, Madam Speaker, look at the timetable, Madam Speaker. Of course, I'm afraid of dirt. I'm a clean guy. I'm afraid of dirt. I don't deal in dirt. Issuance of final bid documents will happen September 2016. Receipt of bids. Remember, I told you, Madam Speaker, that the tendering process was launched on 7th of July 2015. That's when it was launched, Madam Speaker. Receipt of bids, Madam Speaker, end of September. Evaluation and award of concession, mid-October 2016. Commercial closing, sign of concession agreements, mid-November. And final close in May 2017. That was a timetable that had been set up for Huron International Airport. That was the timetable. And Madam Speaker, all these things happened. All these things happened without any fanfare, without any confusion in the bidding process, without any phone calls, without 130 phone calls between November and February. All this happened without all that. There was no need for these things because the whole process was transparent. The whole process was clear. The whole process was put together by SLASPA with little involvement of politicians, but by the professionals of SLASPA after communications and discussion with the private sector in St. Lucia who agreed to the process. There were meetings in the Chamber of Commerce. There were meetings with the Taxi Association. There were meetings with stakeholders where the process, where the transaction module was discussed. And there was broad agreement. There was broad agreement, Madam Speaker, that the PPP arrangement was the best arrangement. And in that arrangement, Madam Speaker, the United Workers' Party were involved. They held discussions with the IFC. They were held discussions with the IFC. And the IFC explained to them what they were doing. Because we were not reinventing the wheel here. They make you believe as if we are reinventing the wheel. That we are the first persons in the world to do that. That's not the case. That is happening in several places in the world as we speak. Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, there was no attempt to interfere in the bidding process. St. Lucia's name would not have been where it is now. There would have been no discussion on who did what when. There would be no need for the Prime Minister to have to launch an investigation on a matter that is in the public domain. There would be no need for that. There would be no need for any of these things, Madam Speaker. We would have come here and we would have reintroduced the airport development tax, because remember, it was put at zero. But the argument was, when the work on the airport started, then the airport development tax would have been reintroduced. So this bill, there will be no need for this bill, because the bill that was repealed, all what we had to do is we'd have to change the zero and put the figure that we wanted for the airport development tax. So in principle, Madam Speaker, what we were trying, the airport development bill, the charge was set at zero. It was set at zero. That's what it was. So, Madam Speaker, what will happen is that we would not have had all the confusion that we have now. There will be no need to seek any assistance on the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, which was signed in 1996 by the government of the United Workers' Party. There will be no need for that. There will be no need for them to have any private investigations on any evidence that was asked for in the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. There will be no need for that. Because the whole process was transparent. The whole process had been discussed with the private sector. The whole process was discussed with SLASPA. The board of SLASPA was on board. There will be no need to seek any mutual legal assistance. There will be no need for that, Madam Speaker. But we come here today to speak about a process that was started by this government, that was obviously flawed, that did not, they started from 2007, they left government in 2011, they did not do it. When they got near doing it, the douche bank says, we're not financing you, because one of your partners has failed the due diligence test. So they did all that, using all the government money for all them phone calls. And we had nothing. We had nothing. The country had nothing. So when we came to government in 2016, there was no agreement. There was no agreement to build any new airport in St. Lucia. So we had to start from scratch because that deal they had fallen through. So between 2011 and they like to talk about time frame. St. Jude. Why are you finish St. Jude? They have to talk about time frames, but we want to go into time frames. Between 2011 and 2016, you had no deal to build any airports, although you had the airport development tax. So if it is just simple, if it is so simple, just put a tax and you build airports. Why didn't you start the airports? Why didn't you start the airport? And all the confusion. And Madam Speaker, I will take that will come another time, because Madam Speaker, I will never go against your ruling. So I will not say all the issues that related to the request on the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. I will not go into that at this time, Madam Speaker. But all that would not have been necessary, because, Madam Speaker, when we sit here in our thrones, in our legal countries, and because we're in government, and we can victimize people, and we can make people cry, that we believe we can do whatever we want, and laugh at people, and scorn them, and treat them with contempt, and treat them with disgust. The reality that hit us now, with the EU blacklisting St. Lucia as a tax haven. That's the reality you have to deal with. So anything we get up and we say here, and if we cajole, and we laugh at, and we even victimize, and we believe that people here, you can victimize them, you can laugh at them. The reality is, you have to face that. And even though you like it or not, you have to face the EU that has blacklisted St. Lucia as a tax haven. That's what you have to face. And that's the reality we have to face. So, Madam Speaker, the airport development, I'm putting it to this government to rethink on taking a loan to build the airports. There's been too much confusion relating to airports. In Trinidad and Tobago, up to this day, under the same Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, there are people in Trinidad who wanted the United States for the airport construction. There are people, I want to save, I love St. Lucia. The member for Answer Economy said that I said about the jobs. Why don't you think I wouldn't be happy if St. Lucia has full employment? I'll be the happiest man in the world. I would be happy if St. Lucia has full employment. If every boy in St. Lucia is working, I'll be happy. Why won't I be happy for that? So why do you think I want St. Lucia to have full employment? I'll bring my seat more, better. So I want full employment for St. Lucia. So the point I'm making, to save St. Lucia's good name, as far as this airport thing is concerned, I'm urging this Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, I'm urging you, rethink that model. Do not be misguided. Because the PPP arrangement is the best arrangement for St. Lucia at this time, based on our fiscal situation and based on what has happened to airports in this region. Have a look, read, think, talk to your colleagues. They will tell you that all of them regretted that they ever built the airports. All of them regretted that they did not take a PPP model to build an airport. The government of Barbados right now is being told by the IMF to sell the airport on a PPP model. You have a problem with VG Airport. You don't know what you're doing with it. You lose money at VG Airport, but you can't. That's the problem you have. That's a real problem with VG Airport. So the whole business of airports is complicated business. It's not as simple as a minister sitting on here and attack people and say whatever he wants without any facts and sing to the gallery. It's more serious than that. Airports are problems. Airports need expert management. So I'm saying again, Mr. Speaker, that this bill would have been relevant, would have been more acceptable to us, would have been more trustworthy going to the member of Castries South if the airport was being built on a PPP basis. I am saying I don't trust that process. I do not believe, based on evidence that I have before me, based on evidence of airports in other parts of the region, I do not believe, Mr. Prime Minister. And Mr. Prime Minister, you must sometimes listen to the other side. Because, you know, even though you're big and powerful now, time flies. We're in 2018. You must listen to the other side. And I'm saying to you, rethink this arrangement where you're going to borrow $150 million to build an airport, because you will find yourself in major problems. And I love St. Lucia. I don't want any St. Lucian, whether he's your labor, to want to go to the States under mutual legal assistance, where he can't travel to the States because he wanted in the States for questioning. I don't want that for any St. Lucian. I want St. Lucia's good name to be preserved. And if you notice, what I'm saying to you, if you don't understand what I'm saying. I do not want any St. Lucian to be wanted in the States under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty that the government signed in 1996. And I'm saying to you that because of the history of airports, where in a neighboring country, several of these people are wanted in the States for the same airport construction under the same Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. They wanted in the States for airport construction. Save St. Lucia that. Save St. Lucia that discomfort. Save St. Lucia that problem. Save St. Lucia that embarrassment. Pull back. You want to stop the speaker from me talking? Man, you're becoming a dictator. But I don't understand it. Man, how are you going to tell you to stop me? Man, I'm an elected member, you know, for longer than you two. So why do you want to stop me when I'm speaking reality? Yes, truth. I'm saying to you, save St. Lucia that embarrassment. Save St. Lucia investigation on the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Save St. Lucia. Change your mind on building this airport for the way you want to do it. You have the IFC will come back. The World Bank, where you're going for all the money for the DVRP, etc. The IFC is a body of the World Bank. They will understand you. They will forgive you. Go back. Go back to the PPP model to save yourself and to save St. Lucia and to save embarrassment for some members of your government. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.